regularly use the terms black and white magic, even though I don't believe the distinction to be clear. That is, malicious outcomes can come from good intentions, and malevolent outcomes from malevolent intentions. Or even more cynically, all white magicians engage in black magic behind your back. I discuss at length in other vlogs, and don't propose to dwell on this here. But recently I seem to keep coming across the terms red, white and black magic. Sometimes even pink, which is in between red and white, and grey, which is between white and black. While such terms come from magical traditions, I'm somewhat aware of, particularly Tantra. They're not common parlance within the circles I mix. Furthermore, from a more Islamic alchemical tradition, I would ascribe very different definitions to these terms. Well, whenever there is a potential for misunderstanding, I always think therein lies a vlog for my channel. So let's explore. As I say, concepts of red, white and black magic appear to come from a tantric tradition. I strongly suspect that this is a new age interpretation of tantric, as there is a strong emphasis on S magic. But even here I find disagreement amongst practitioners, not only on definitions but practices within S magic. I suspect, but cannot be sure, that some of these practitioners are more affected by Aleister Crowley than others. So let me describe these practices of these more Thelemic practitioners, and later alert you to points of disagreement, and indeed my own very different interpretation. White magic is the tradition that you will be most familiar with. When applied to Tantra, it's often known as the right-hand path. So would be about pursuing a path to nirvana through good deeds on this earth. A white Tantra resembles a bit to mindfulness in some yoga styles, such as Kundalini yoga. The Tantric yoga practices are aimed at purification of the body and mind. White Tantra uses rituals to liberate the soul. You can think of the use of mantras, mudras, yantras and visualizations. Indeed, practitioners often wear white clothing. Although all of the major chakras or energy centres are recognised in this practice, it's the upper two chakras, the third eye and the crown chakra, that are the most important. The practices take years of hard work to develop, hard work and deep understanding of the self. It requires accepting oneself fully and with all our faults, and then working on them and dissolving them. Whilst all of this seems easy, the first challenge practitioners face is to begin accepting their faults. The surrender to the ego and the losing of the self comes much later. White Tantra tries to directly bypass or overcome dark or suppressed elements in our being with certain yogic techniques. It perhaps brings those elements into consciousness, but there's no aim to materialise or realise them. The white path does not recognise the importance of the body and its energies. It does recognise the importance of the body and its energies. It focuses on meditation and breathing exercises to work with your own Kundalini. Physical touch and SUL practices are not necessarily in order to advance to this path. A white Tantra isn't really focused on the physical act of S at all. However, applied to Tantric S magic, this would tend to be unchallenging SUL practices, probably with your spouse. This is often called vanilla by many. From a purer Tantric perspective, This is about semen retention, even abstinence, which I will discuss later. Red Tantra is a form of Tantra orientated towards the ecstatic experience of bestial union, divine union of the male and female principle. Basically is a path that you practice with a partner, the uniting of the lingam and the yoni. It is referred to as the path of the left hand, i.e. impure, or Varma Marga. Red Tantric practices historically have been a bit rebellious. It involves the ritual use of substances that were traditionally prohibited to Brahmin priests, including meat, wine, fish, parched grains, and bestial union. Orientated towards the divine union of the male and female energies, Red Tantra is known as the left-handed path or Varga Marga. It tends to be associated with ritual or ceremonial magic. This refers to the divine male and the divine feminine, and is not the actual gender of participants. The practice is considered rebellious due to taboos associated with S and all things that are considered impure. Red Tantra is part of Tantra, best known for bringing us Tantric S. The Red Tantra is primarily a practice that you do with your or a partner. A Red Tantra is focused on sensuality and sexuality, the lower chakras. However, all of the chakras are involved in the sexual act, leading to orgasmic being and connection. There is a tendency that Red Tantra includes a lot of lovemaking, not only with their partner, but also with other group members, free S. It thus focuses on transformation of bestial energy with another partner. An example of Red Tantra practice is the Kama Sutra, albeit this was written long before Tantra emerged. However, from all those following the more thelemic path, this is also associated with blood magic and therefore sacrifice and surrender. Although certainly thelema can be traced to the Red Tantric practices, blood can be used in spellcasting, either your own or that of others. This would incorporate the DNA of ancestors and is thus very powerful. The actual magic, this is about surrendering your own body, or indeed it could be another's. Thus the realisation that there are stronger wills and others than you, and surrender is an active state of non-resisting. From my own Islamic perspective, this has strong resonance with submission, which is essential to suppress the ego and finding God. The base application of the red rite from Red Tantra is lovemaking. And one use of the rite is to obtain love of the one desired. By coercing love does seem unethical, but coercing love does seem unethical to say the least. By practicing the red rite in meditation, we make changes in ourselves, and in turn does actually result in changes in the objective phenomenal world. We can combine the practice of absorption with the investigation of phenomena. We do begin to see the impermanence and insubstantiality of the world, we do, in quite a straightforward way, begin to see things as they really are. We can experience a narrowing of the gap. A person who we have found repulsive may now seem neutral, or a dispute may be resolved because we are no longer actively hostile. Black magic is a tradition that most of you will at least think you know what it is, but probably know very little about. When applied to Tantra, it's often known as the left-hand path. It's an agent of destruction, the Kali in Hinduism, which is sometimes necessary and cathartic. The left-handed path would be about pursuing a shortcut to nirvana through transgressive deeds on this earth. Maybe even using transgressive deeds to encourage an entity to possess you and then follow the command of that entity. Some from Abrahamic religions would define this as the devil or demons. Black Tantra is a form of Tantra orientated towards exercising certain magical powers, siddhis. The human body can be powerful. The human mind can be powerful. Combined magic can occur. Black Tantra uses the power of the body and mind to achieve powerful manifestations, primarily in the material realm. However, manipulation, control and power do not comprise as powerful tools in Black Tantra. An example of Black Tantra practice is an intentionally planned and set up group ritual to attain a specific outcome. Sexual practices, sometimes painfully long hours of sadhana, are part of the practice as well. S-magic uses sexual energy to envision certain desires during an orgasm, which then comes true, manifest in real life. It's the power of body and mind. Power releases also dark forces. Using Tantra techniques to project alternative realities, levitation, and or to overpower other people. This more has to do with manipulation and control. Black Tantra, however, is poorly understood because it's mostly practiced in secrecy. Black Tantra dives into sexual practices to connect deeply with your mental state. Applied to Tantric S-magic, this would tend to be challenging sexual practices, often with multiple partners and including some S-exchanges. The whole point of such acts is to push you beyond your boundaries, even disgust yourself. Thus, Black Tantra often involves unconsensual S, group S, and fetishism. It's often said about the left-handed Tantra that if you're enjoying it, you're not doing it right. An interesting way of looking at Black Tantra is that in contrast to other colours of the Tantra, it aims at not only achieving full consciousness of the innermost, often hidden desires, but also realising or materialising these. In fact, it makes Black Tantra a more explicit ego-based practice. And the root idea of Black Tantra is to embrace and overcome our ego, but the temptations of actual powers acquired to realise or materialise deep hidden desires may finally leave the practitioner trapped in the dark. As I say, if you enjoy it, you're not doing it correctly. Nevertheless, if the practitioner has not begun a path of self-revelation, for example, understanding their own sexuality, the transgressive nature of Black Tantra can create false ego states. That is, without a strong spiritual grounding, Black Tantra can lead participants believing that such transgression is enjoyable, even normal. And I'm not making any moral judgments here. Ancient philosophies and medical practices from Asia and India believe that semen retention leads to better health and longer life. In some forms of Buddhism, Tantric S is strongly associated with the practice of semen retention, as sexual fluids are considered an energetic substance that must be reserved. And many Buddhist Tantric works direct the focus away from sexual emission towards retention and intentionally prolonging bliss, thus interiorizing the Tantric offering of fluids directed to the deities. The semen, which is in essence the very life force of man, must be retained in the body to maintain a man's health. Whilst often seen as a white tantric practice, it is more of a yogic or sexual health practice that than directly related to what we have already discussed. Having said this, many believe that some semen retention is necessary to experience Kundalini. Certainly most of us who've experienced Kundalini have found this to be a tremendously beneficial in many respects. Ejaculation reduces the life force available to man, which is evident from the immediate drop in energy and generally depressed nature which can be reserved after ejaculating. Semen is a complex mixture of calcium, phosphorus, lecithin, cholesterol, albumin and nucleoproteins. When it is retained, it is reabsorbed into the body, where it is used directly to support the brain and central nervous system. This improves their functions, making you more focused and confident. Sexual energy created during arousal must be transmuted to take full advantage of semen retention. Transmutation allows sexual energy to be used for the benefit of man and not released in such a way as to harm him. Techniques have been used to transmute sexual energy, including pranayama, meditation, mantra, the Tibetan 5-element healing practices. Physical activities such as exercise are also useful ways to transmute sexual energy. Whilst abstinence and celibacy may be practices as a start of semen retention, the full benefits can only be obtained by experiencing sexual arousal without ejaculation. Some branches of Tibetan Buddhism use semen retention techniques as a tool in discovering deeper states of emptiness and bliss. Semen retention can improve your sex life. Frequent sexual arousal without ejaculation builds stamina and self-control. Self-control that allows you to last as long as necessary. Men that do not practice semen retention will usually last 2 to 7 minutes before ejaculating, often leaving a woman less than satisfied. Sexual gratification usually takes longer for a woman to achieve, so women need a man that can last as long as she. If a man is able to maintain sexual arousal for as long as he desires, it not only allows the woman to reach climax, it heightens the expectation of much more climaxes to come. In the end, a longer lasting will make a happier partner. Perhaps the greatest potential benefits are that can be seen as an sexual detox. A detox from the addictions of pornography, fetishism, and how it impacts on our personal relationships, or more mundanely, our overemphasis on orgasm. Interesting though I find the contents of this vlog, I suspect that the New Age have taken some concepts from Hinduism and Buddhism and developed them into philosophies and practices that no longer make complete sense to their original purpose. Let me be clear, I recognise that we all have our individual paths and will never attempt to impose my path on another, not least as my own path keeps diverting, even at times retracing its steps. But it is my path. However, from my Islamic Alchemical perspective, I strongly suspect that New Agers have misinterpreted some of the definitions and their importance. My starting point is the Bhatia, or Oath of Red Sulphur, found in Shams al-Ma'arif, often seen as a highly controversial element. I see it as extremely important. Red sulphur is an essential part of the creation of philosopher's stone, which transmutes lead to gold, or in terms of personal alchemy, transmutes us from the baser reality to being closer to a union with God. Within alchemy, red sulphur points to the uniting of genders, sulphur being assertive or masculine, sometimes known as the Red King, and Mercury accommodating or female, the White Queen, the sun and the moon, an essential part of the process of turning lead into gold. And thus we have introduced both red and white. Or freeing oneself from impurities to find the self or Allah. A man can only truly be a man, that is completion, by finding unity with a female. There is no male actor with the propensity towards depositing, seeding and creating, except through the existence of a female who's receptive to the action, a receptacle for that depositing, seeding and creation. Allah requires his creation to continually co-create, and this may only be achieved via the union of divine masculine and feminine. Hence the red and the white can be interpreted much more profoundly than I've already introduced them. Of course, there are many parallels across the interpretation of Tantra that I've outlined. It seems to me that these interpretations have missed that which is truly divine. Withholding the nafs and in embracing akal, the intellect. So, the path of knowledge is a spiritual path, as important to Muslim as prayer itself. We do create our reality, but only by accepting the actions of Allah. Only through love can man find a oneness with Allah, or uniting with Allah, by realising that we were Allah all along, or co-creators. Of course, my interpretation may be entirely incorrect, and whilst less titillating than others I've described, it does make much more sense to me.